When we think about historical movies and historical films, our minds automatically refer back to classic historical epics created by Hollywood over the decades, such as Gladiator or Spartacus. But most audiences seem to forget that some of the best historical movies ever created are not from Hollywood production studios or even the Western world, but from Asia and other parts of the world. And in this video, I will give you my recommendations of the top 10 international historical movies that I think all viewers of this channel will really enjoy. But before we begin, don't forget, if you love anything to do with historical movies and historical TV shows, then subscribe to my channel History Spark. The 10th spot on this list goes to Ran, the last epic samurai film created by the legendary director Akira Kurosawa, and it tells the story of an elderly samurai warlord who has gathered considerable wealth and land over the years, and realizing his end is beginning to near, he decides to create an elaborate plan to prevent any potential bloodshed between his three sons, and he decides to give each of them a third of the kingdom to rule. But this plan fails spectacularly as power and greed corrupts his sons, causing a civil war in which bloodshed, turmoil and fear are commonplace. Ran has amazing acting by the entire cast, a fantastic story and some epic large-scale battles, and it highlights why Kurosawa's films are held in such high regard even to this day. Ran is a film that does have a lot of talking and the action scenes are not as regular as one would expect, but if you stick with this film, you will definitely not regret it, as it is one of the best international historical films ever created. At number 9, it is Furious, a Russian epic period film which covers the siege of Ryazan by the Mongols in 1237, and the plot is based off of the tale of the destruction of Ryazan, which tells about the actions of Russian knight Patek Lavrat, who led the heavily outnumbered Russian forces against the Mongol hordes of Batu Khan. This was the first Russian-based historical movie I had ever seen, and I really enjoyed it as the plot was simple and easy to follow, and the main character was fairly well developed and believable as well. Also, the movie did a really great job of bringing the power of the Mongols to the screen in a really engaging manner. Furious is a bit lacking in terms of cinematography and set pieces, but overall, for a B-grade Russian film, I really enjoyed Furious, and I think all viewers of this channel will do so as well. At number 8, it is Baji Rao Mastani, an epic historical drama from Bollywood set in 18th century India during the peak of the Maratha Empire's power. The film follows the story of Peshwa Baji Rao, a brilliant and undefeated general who draws much ire and disrepute amongst the predominantly Hindu Marathas for his controversial second marriage to a Muslim princess named Mastani. Baji Rao Mastani does a brilliant job of blending romance, palace intrigue and dramatic battle scenes into a truly exceptional historical film, which is further enhanced by the acting of the three central characters of the movie. However though, the script is definitely one of the weakest elements of Baji Rao Mastani, with some of the dialogue feeling overly dramatic and unrealistic. Also, the third act of the movie is a bit rushed and not as well executed as the rest of the movie was. However, if you are looking for a well-crafted and emotionally engaging film focused around Indian history, then Baji Rao Mastani is my recommendation for you. At number 7, it is 13 Assassins, a remake of Ichi Kudo's 1963 Japanese period drama film also called 13 Assassins, and this film takes place in 1844 near the end of the Edo period, in which a group of 13 assassins, 12 samurais and a hunter hatch a secret plan to assassinate Lord Matsudaira Narisugu, the murderous leader of the Akashi clan. If you love historical movies with lots of combat and action scenes, then 13 Assassins is the movie for you, as this movie has great battle scenes, an interesting plot, and some fantastic set pieces and world building elements as well. The acting is not the best and some plot devices are a bit cliche, but 13 Assassins is a great movie for anyone who loves samurai and lots of combat. The 6th spot on this list goes to Kesari, which tells the incredible epic story of the last stand of 21 brave Sikhs fighting against 10,000 Afghan tribesmen in 1897. Kesari's primary focus is on the Battle of Saragari, in which one of the greatest last stands in history takes place as 21 Sikhs fight to the death to to protect their base and ensure that they can hold off Afghan forces long enough for the British to organize a counterattack. Kesari brings everything audiences would want in an epic historical film, such as realistic production design, interesting characters, and some huge epic battles as well. There's actually very little to critique about Kesari in my opinion, except that perhaps the ambitions and reasoning why the Afghans were trying to attack Fort of Saraguri could have been expanded upon a bit more, and there are some very over-the-top action sequences which are totally unbelievable in the film as well. But if you want an epic historical film of one of the most daring and successful last stands in modern history, then Kesari is my recommendation for you. At number 5, it is Mongol: The Rise of Genghis Khan, a film which depicts the life of Genghis Khan from his difficult and poverty-stricken childhood to the start of his rise to power and the initial unification of all the great tribes of Mongolia. Mongol is a film with fantastic acting which really does tell the complex life of Temujin, the future ruler of Mongolia, in a real and honest manner, really highlighting to the viewer the grit, determination and ambition Genghis Khan possessed to unite all the tribes of Mongolia together. However, my biggest gripe with this film is with the third act, as Genghis Khan's rise to power is not effectively displayed or communicated to viewers at all. In one scene he's a struggling loner, and in the next scene he's riding against the enemy at the head of a large Mongol horde. And due to some of the weaker plot elements of the film, it does stop it from being one of the truly great films of the genre, but it is still one of the best international films ever created, and I highly recommend it to any viewer of this channel. At number 4, it is All Quiet on the Western Front, a Netflix original World War I movie, which follows Paul Boehmer and his friends who naively join the German army as they have a romanticized version of war in their heads, and it is propaganda that the German government and army are too happy to continue to fuel. But as the movie progresses, these young men lose their innocence as they experience the horrors and trauma of war and the physical and mental impact it has on them. This movie has amazing acting, a great story, and fantastic sense of realism. This movie is cold and calculated, and it shows the Germans as more than just the big baddies or an evil force. It was a group of individual soldiers who didn't know what they were getting themselves into and had no choice but to follow the orders of their generals. If you love war movies, then All Quiet on the Western Front on Netflix is the perfect recommendation for you. At number 3, it is Redcliffe, a Chinese historical drama which brings the epic rivalry between Cao Cao and Liu Bei to life in a magnificent depiction of the Three Kingdoms War. This film utilizes a slower paced story to effectively develop the characters of the movie, and it also gives a chance for the societal and political impact of the Three Kingdoms War on common folk to be viewed, as well as this movie has a 288-minute runtime. There are also some amazing battle scenes which will keep the viewer on the edge of their seats, as this film has some of the most unique military and battle tactics I've ever seen depicted in a historical film. Obviously, with a film of this magnitude there are going to be some issues, such as the length being far too long for some people, and also there's a huge number of characters and names being introduced and removed within the story, making it hard for anyone unfamiliar with the Three Kingdoms history to keep up with. But this is a small critique for one of the best Chinese historical films ever created, so if you're looking for a movie about ancient China and the Three Kingdoms War, then Redcliffe is my recommendation for you. The second spot on this list goes to Admiral Roaring Currents, a South Korean epic war film which focuses on the famous Battle of Myeongnyang, which sees General Yi Sun-sin fighting against a Japanese Navy fleet numbering over 330 ships with his own small force of only 13 ships. The Admiral Roaring Currents does a fantastic job of building General Yi's character as a reliable, experienced and fearless commander who is the last hope of the Joseon Empire from being overrun by the Japanese. The Admiral has amazing naval battles, and the entire film plays out like an amazing action film enhanced with unique and risky military tactics. While this film does a great job of displaying the amazing naval skills of the Korean Navy, the same cannot be said about the Japanese Navy, as the film does little to develop the antagonists and displays them as poorly skilled naval tacticians and sailors, which is not historically accurate. But apart from this minor critique, Admiral Roaring Currents is a perfect viewing experience for anyone looking for an epic historical adventure reminiscent of 300 on the Sea. And the top spot on this list goes to Arn the Knight Templar, which sees a fictional character named Arn become a Knights Templar, and he's a witness or a catalyst to many real historical events such as the Battle of Montgizard and the Battle of Hattin as well. Arn the Knight Templar is also the most expensive film ever created in the history of Swedish cinema, and it is a fantastic feat of storytelling, cinematography, and bringing a semi-accurate historical depiction of the Knights Templar to our screens. And it is, in my opinion, probably the best international historical film ever created, and I cannot recommend it highly enough to any viewer of this channel. So let me know in the comments down below if you agree with my recommendations of the top 10 best international historical films, and if there are any other great historical movies I may have missed out on. And as always, if you want to stay up to date with everything to do with historical movies and historical TV shows, then subscribe to my channel, History Spark. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.